believe the county government is very much supportive of people, their need for help. I don't think there are racial barriers there. My own daughter has had help through St. Louis County with medical conditions, and I did getting child support after my divorce. They were there, they were working. And so I don't see that disparity as much. I see it in a lot of other areas, but not in county services.
Thank you. Mr. Stauber.
Thank you. Vern, I want all people to grow and challenge themselves and be successful. And that's why when I vote in the best interest of all the people, to give them the opportunity. And as I've stated several times, there's not a price I won't pay to help a child. And I will continue to do that. In my votes, you'll see in the votes that I voted on preventive maintenance for children. And of course, we're inundated right now. We have to think outside the box, and some of those services need to be delivered in a different way and much earlier in their lives to be able to affect them in a positive manner, so they can live the best life that they can, and we're there to assist them.
Very good, thank you. Ms. Olson.
And for the last 25 years, I said I've been working with kids and families and nonprofits, and one of my roles in that has been to be an advocate and to be a voice for people who don't have a voice in whatever system it is that they're working within. And so I've seen firsthand that there are people that have more of a voice in our society than others, and that it's very important that we make sure, especially government has a role in kind of equalizing the playing field for people and making sure that all people have access to the same things. So to make sure that we have everyone's voices represented is really important to me, and I've seen that doesn't always happen in our society. So how I've been able to do that in my own work so far is just to, it sounds maybe a little cliche, but it's true, to start by actually listening, and to start by listening to the people that are affected by the issue that you're working on. If we're talking about social services, we need to talk to people that are not only delivering the social service, we need to talk about to the people who are receiving it about what their experience is like. There's a lot to be learned there, and I find that there's a lot of solutions there. So we need to bring people into positions of leadership that are affected by the very issues that we're trying to solve.
Thank you. Mr. Boyle.
In my other part-time job that I have, where I work about 10 hours a week as a nurse practitioner for the Fond du Lac tribe for the past 10 years, firsthand, I'm in the trenches and get to see how my clients work with public health nursing and social services in our county. And one of the things that I feel real strongly about, especially with the baby boomers coming of age and retiring, and I did this as an op-ed in the DNT over Martin Luther King Day, is to make sure that we're representing, our workers are representing the people that we're taking care of, period. I think that's so important, and I made that an emphasis for our directors to try to go out and reach out to communities of color and minorities to make sure that we are doing that. We have a real good chance of, with the turnover going on right now, baby boomers to do that. I've also, in my 3 years, made sure that we've had people of color on our boards, especially Fond du Lac and Boys Ford, who incorporate St. Louis County.
Thank you.
So are you familiar with what's in place right now, ma'am? With gun control?
To a certain degree.
What are you familiar with?
Well, that they have
I want to be able to help you out here. I want to be able to help you out. I have in my job, I carry a weapon with me. I'm trained, fully trained, and I used it. I didn't have enough time to use it to defend my life, and I carry it with me almost 24/7. The gun I have is will be used to protect me, you, or anybody else that's in danger of great bodily harm or death. And I promise you that. I swore 23 years ago when I raised my right hand to protect the Constitution. Part of the Constitution is the Second Amendment. With that being said, I am in favor of making sure that weapons are kept out of the hands of people that shouldn't have them. Felons, drug dealers, habitual drunks or drug users, whatever we need to do, because I see the gun violence. The people that use them in a dangerous fashion, I'm afraid of too. The law-abiding citizens that own guns, that have a concealed carry permit, I'm not, as a police officer, I am not concerned about them using it wrong. It's the ones that have it illegally. I think to have the ability to really enforce some of our gun laws, i.e. a straw purchase. Are you familiar with what a straw purchase is? Okay, somebody that does that needs to be held accountable without question. And so when we enforce the current laws and hold them accountable now, I think we can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Stauber, in answer to your initial questions, your answer did get at exactly what the question was asking. So it has to do with the gun show loopholes and keeping guns out of the hands of...
Absolutely. There's no Mr. Frederick, there's no debate that keeping the guns out of the hands of people that shouldn't. I think all common sense people agree with that, and I'm in support of that as a law enforcement officer.
Beth?
Well, I actually agree about with what Pete said. So I'm trying to think of something to add to that, but basically I agree. I think that we've made some important gun control decisions where we've said that, you know, if you've got violent crimes, people who have protective orders against them for good reason, for domestic violence, don't have access to guns. I think that's an important distinction. So people that are at risk of using them to harm other people should not have them, and that it's important for us to have gun laws that are appropriate for making sure that the people who do have them are following all the regulations that they need to. But it's an amendment right that's very important in our Constitution, and I think that we need to walk both lines carefully study that.
Sure. Patrick, how far should gun control go?
You know, I agree with the other two candidates here. I think the gun loophole needs to be changed, and you know, I think there could be some more restrictions on background ID and assault rifles on top of it. I myself, I grew up out in the swamp of Douglas County, 20 miles south of Superior. Grew up deer hunting and bird hunting. That was a thing we did, you know, was put food on our table. We went through about 2 deer a year in my house. To present day, we still go through about a deer a year. We have those guns locked up, whether it's my rifle or my shotguns. And I'm respectful of people who own guns, but at the same time, I think we've only gone through so many tragedies, and we've become so immune to it as a nation that we need to stick up for ourselves and do a better job.
Thank you. Linda?
I guess I have more questions about gun control than I have answers. Personally, I have no relationship with guns. I would fairly say I'm afraid of them. I understand that they are important for hunting and recreation, so there's a place for them. But personal firearms in an urban environment, it just doesn't make sense to me. What is the reason that we would need those? And why is the NRA's influence so strong at the national level that all of us are having to go along with some of these mass shootings that are going on with nothing we can do personally? I believe it's lobbyists for the NRA that are in control of many of our gun regulations, and they are increasing in power and they're increasing in money. And I have a lot of unanswered questions because I don't have any relationship with guns, nor ever have I been threatened by one.
Just a quick follow-up. You know, and one of the things is we can keep a suspect off our airlines, but we can't keep them from buying an assault rifle, period.
Sure. Mr. Stauber?
Yeah, thank you. Ma'am, I want to share a little scenario with you. I was a rookie officer off duty on December 15th of 1995 at 10:32 p.m. I became a victim of a violent gun crime. The individual, and Berg remembers this, was not charged with the felon possession of a handgun, which angered me to the core and angered my fiance. It was 12 years later that he finally did enough crime that he got a long prison sentence. He will be in prison. I will be retired from law enforcement. He will still be in prison where he belongs. He's a dangerous individual. So I have been a victim. I was shot in the head with a handgun. And so I want you to know where I come from as far as gun safety, gun control. And being a victim, I think I can speak real to that point. When I heard those sirens coming, I thought I was being finished off until the sirens came. They asked me afterwards, how long do you think it was before the police arrived? I said about 2.5 minutes, 24 seconds. The first squad was on the scene. I, having been trained, thought it was 2.5 minutes. And so the system in my scenario failed the first time, but eventually that individual is in prison. He'll never harm me or you again.
Yeah, well, I think it's not as simple as that. I mean, it's not simple as one or the other. I think there's a whole lot of middle ground here. You know, and one of the things that I see is that you know, after some of the shootings that have recently happened, there was a police chief down in Dallas who spoke about kind of some of the unarming he's done of his police officers and how effective that has actually been, even though then we had these horrific shootings afterward. But that he wasn't really going to change that policy because overall that had been really effective for them in terms of community relations and in terms of keeping things calm in their community. And so, you know, he had some really good ideas about how, from their, you know, from the police side, that might work, that he had practiced, and it had been pretty effective. So I think we need to listen to people that have those kinds of ideas. I'm not a police chief, and so I really want to hear what they have to say. On the other hand, I also, you know, want to hear ideas from the community about kind of what's working and what's not working. That's the only way we're going to come to this, I think, is by really talking with one another and figuring that out. I'm not sure that that's a role I would want to step into without all that information.
Thank you, Patrick.
You know, with the county board, it's also working with Sheriff Lippman, who's in charge of the Sheriff's Department. And I do believe we need to continue training our Sheriff's Department. And along with that, I believe in a community-based care, much like the city of Duluth does with their police officers. The community officer, where you get to know them, you get to trust them, they know you, you know them, is, I think, a specific model that we have to endure ourselves on the county level. And one other example, and I think we ask so much of our law enforcement agencies, not only the enforcement side, but the social work side, the nursing side, the EMT side, everything. And I'm very proud of what we did in St. Louis County with the dedicated social worker for mental health to give a tool for the city of Duluth and the police department to help de-escalate situations with someone in a severe mental health state. And we've won state awards for this. And I think it's more that preventive care that we're going to lead to in the future, and what we're looking for is coming.
Linda Ross.
Like transportation, in reference to the county's being areas of overseeing, I do think that one of the fastest growing categories of spending is in public safety, and over 1/3 of the county budget goes toward public safety. Now, of course, that's the attorney's office, the sheriff's office, the jail, law enforcement, but I don't think we have a problem with funding or enacting fair law enforcement. We have what we need there. So the problem comes down to law officers and what they are trained to do in the area of racial discrimination or improvements in racial discrimination. Because I don't think there's any doubt that we've seen some of that nationally and perhaps locally. And so it exists. We can't ignore that. And I believe that we have to really open up the avenues of education to diminish that within the police force and our public service, public safety area of the county.
Pete Stauber?
Thank you for the question. That obviously is near and dear to my heart. So in police work, you always want to go for, I always want the gold standard, and the gold standard is voluntary compliance. When we have voluntary compliance, nobody gets hurt, there's no shootings and what have you. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. The odd time there will be the ability to use force and to affect an arrest or stop a situation. But I think Sheriff Littman has done a really good job. I have the opportunity to, at times, to work next to our sheriff department members, and I'm very proud of the way they handle themselves. You know, for instance, in the city of Duluth, we have less lethal. We have the rubber rounds, and we have tasers. And those are two tools that we can use that will allow us to effectively bring a situation to resolve more peacefully. In fact, our crew used the less lethal last week for the first time, and it was successful. Nobody got hurt. The individual was threatening us with a machete, and peaceful resolve. And I think that as we look forward and we continue the dialogue on policing, on police relations, I think it's important every day that as law enforcement officers, we have the ability to have a positive effect and build those relations. And I know that our Sheriff's Department is doing that. In fact, we supported and voted on 2 additional officers for the schools in St. Louis County. I think that's wonderful. And I think it'll be, when we get the report late next summer, I think it'll be very positive. So those are some initiatives that I support, and I think they'll really pay dividend in the end.
Mr. Boyle?
Home placement is #1 on my list. Again, $15 million, upwards of $15 million we're spending this year. It's over 10% of our property tax base is going into this, and I see no end to it. We're not alone in this. I think all of 87 other counties are going through this, and it's a perfect storm, including mental health, where I've been working with Essentia, St. Luke's, and public-private sectors to try to make it where we have more resources for those in need. The Birch Tree Center up on top of Duluth, some triage center where the folks in mental health crisis can go, not clogging up our ERs or our county jails. And 2 is the opiate heroin addiction. It's through the roof. The DNT article on the front page today just proves it. St. Louis County has the highest per capita of deaths, heroin and opiate abuse. It's going across every small community across the U.S. We need federal support on this. I talked to Representative Nolan and Senator Franken yesterday at the Labor Day picnic, and it needs to be done, and this is a federal issue.
Thank you. Under Ross Selner, the #1 issue facing the county?
Of course it is social services and mental health and the opiate addiction, which we've already discussed, and actually I remember myself have brought up. I do think that it's epidemic proportions, drug misuse. But my question that I always come back to is why? Why is there so much of this? Why is there so much depression? And that makes me look at our lifestyles. And the lifestyles of many people in poverty, by their circumstances or by continual crisis situations, have got very low quality of life. And so I guess it comes back to how we are supporting each other in this county, from the family level to the political level. We have to be there for each other. And I also think we need to spend more time outdoors. We have to get away from our screens and become more interactive with each other, supporting each other. And we have to put money into social services and away from the things that take away from our quality of life.
Thank you. Pete Stauber?
So Vern, you phrased it, what's the biggest issue? As a chair of public works and transportation, I'd like to say roads and bridges, but really I think the biggest issue is mental health and substance abuse. And really it's an epidemic, and it's going to take Washington, St. Paul, and our local communities to solve it. And so I think that we deal with human lives, because human lives are affected. I don't think there's anything that should stop us as a state, as a nation, as a community, to work harder than trying to fix this and teach the kids at a young age, get to them early. And I know there are people out there that are subject matter experts that we're going to be bringing in to help our public health and human services make those real good decisions that'll benefit the young generation, so they can grow up to be fruitful and live a great life.
Thank you, Beth.
I would say the biggest challenge the county faces is understaffing in a few different areas. Public health and human services has been one. The county jail, I think, is another, where that's leading to problems in providing the needed services that we need to for people, and providing problems for the workers and being able to deliver good services. And I think what I would like to do about that is to help assist in kind of streamlining some of those services. I mean, I know our job is not to micromanage the administrators. I have a board over me as a nonprofit, and that's not their job either. But I do think that it's important to look at what do we really need to be doing, and what's really the most effective. What are the things that are making the biggest impact, and how can we invest in those things very well, so that we change the things that are happening in society.
Thank you all very much. On behalf of the News Tribune Editorial Board, I just want to thank you one more time, candidates, for being here. Thanks to everyone who is attending, and thanks for the folks watching online. We'll wrap up. We'll give each of the candidates 1.5 minutes to again kind of sum up why you're the best person, why you have the best qualifications for the seat you're running for. And we will begin with Linda Ross-Stelner.
I am running for office for county commissioner because I have worked just about all my life to get to this point. I have worked in the dental health care service. I have worked in the environmental area, and I believe that we are at a point where we can no longer ignore the importance of environmental protection in every vote we make at the county level. I am the only candidate on the county commission, or running for county commissioner, who can provide that. I have the education, I have the experience, I have the passion, I have the time. And it has to come down to this. We have had our hottest June ever on record. Our greenhouse gases are continuing to improve. We are going to get more severe weather, heavy precipitation, violent windstorms. We're seeing this on the ground now. We have to take a political stance, and that's what I have done. It's not common, it's not widespread, but I'm willing to do it. I have the fortitude going forward to look out for our environment and make every decision based on looking through a green lens. The time is now. We have to do this. We can't do it on the national level, but we can on this county board election.
Thank you. I'm going to go a little bit out of order. Commissioner Boyle, as the incumbent in District 2, I'd like to ask you to go next, please. Tell us why you think people should re-elect you.
I think my voting record speaks for itself over the past 7 years. You know, when I first started, we were post-recession, City of Duluth, when they were looking at cutbacks of getting rid of our library system, selling some of our parkland. And at that point I came and said we need to bend but not break. And look where we are now, post-recession, and how St. Louis County, Duluth is thriving, all the way from here to Ely in a lot of different areas. And I'm proud of that vote. You know, what what I make sure I vote is how I want to make this an easier place for the next generation to live. My daughters, if they're fortunate to be able to live up here, I want them to say, Dad, where were you on that vote? I want to be there to make sure that that's possible. And we live in Duluth for a reason why we don't live in St. Paul and Minneapolis. It's because we enjoy the outdoors, we enjoy our green space, we like the big lake, even though it gets a little cold in the winter. So that's what I want to continue to improve. You know, I'm a team player. I don't like to be in the limelight. It's not my forte. I like to be on the bumping elbows in the boardroom and making things happen with compromise. And I think that's what's truly missing in the U.S. right now, in our federal and state government, is that compromise. And I so really enjoy working with other county commissioners and being able to get the job done at the end.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Stauber. Your opponent isn't here, unfortunately. Your final words?
So I've really enjoyed these last 4 years as a member of the St. Louis County Board. We've had some tough votes, but one of the things I really appreciate is the civility on the board. We can disagree on a subject, but we can still have lunch together. That is critically important, I think, for the success of the board. And I think that if somebody were to look at my votes, I think they're reasonable. I think they're I think they're reasonable and rational. Is that the word?
Rational.
Rational. And I also think that, thank you, Chuck. And I also think that if we look at from a bird's eye view, the good things the county has done, and I'm 1 of 7, we are a team when we go in there, but the AA bond rating, which helps on interest rate, the infrastructure investment, historic levels, understanding public health and human services needs a huge change. And I think with Commissioner Boyle leading that charge, he's in the right place at the right time with his background and experience. I look at what the future looks like. As Linda said, I agree with letting science, the data and science drive investments in our mining industry, etc. And I don't think that somebody should stop the process midstream. I'm in support. That's economic development, and what's good for the range is good for our community and good for Duluth. And so I think that I've done a real good job. I've learned a lot, and it has been a pleasure to sit on the county board and represent close to 28,000 people. And the phone calls I get on some of them not so nice, but at least we have that discussion. I tell people they call me 24/7. I work nights. I'm a father of 4. I'm up all the time. And some people can't believe I'm sending messages or emails at 3:30 for the world. And I'm really, really proud, and I ask again for the opportunity to serve another 4 years.
Thank you. Beth Olson, your opponent, also isn't here. Please kind of tell us why you're the best pick for Western Duluth on the St. Louis County Board.
Well, in 2003, I just want to tell you a little story. So we saw a need. I was working for the program for aid to victims of sexual assault, and we saw a need to start a sexual assault nurse examiner program. So we had specially trained nurses who would respond to sexual assault victims of all ages and give them the compassionate health care they needed, and also provide good evidence to the police and the county attorney's office to be able to charge sex offenders in our community. And this was a very long initiative that I led a whole committee of people to do. Representatives from social services, law enforcement, multiple jurisdictions, the county attorney's office, and other community members. I led a task force of people to develop the policies and the programs that put that into place. And we got St. Luke's and St. Mary's at the time, Ascension out, to actually work together to fund this program and to deliver this service in unity, in cooperation with a nonprofit and in cooperation with government. And that is just one example of the kind of work I've been able to do in this community by bringing people together that honestly sometimes are unlikely partners, but to make sure that when we see a need that we're finding a viable solution to it, and one that sticks and one that lasts and has an impact, just like that program does. And I could talk about a number of other things, but I think that's what makes me, that's really what made me want to run, was to make sure that we're having a proactive county board at all levels, and that we're reaching out and making sure that we're solving the community problems that are in front of us, by developing good partnerships and by making sure that we're working hand in hand with the state that sets the policy that we're required to implement, so that we're having effective solutions to problems right here in St. Louis County.
Thank you very much. We're shooting for an hour. It's 59 minutes and 33 seconds.
Whoa.
Thank you all very much.